It is OTA week here for the New York Jets, and today we are going to be looking at an article by none other than Jets X Factor writer Nick Faria. Unfortunately, Connor could not make it with us tonight. It is me and Chris tonight, and let's get this stream started. Chris, hit the intro.
Jets, Jets, let's go.
Jets wide receiver Wesley Walker. Wesley, how you doing today? ESPN writer Mr. Rich Samini, Jets reporter for The Athletic Mr. Zach Rosenblatt, Hall of Famer and Jets legend Mr. Marty Lyons.
Your host, Connor Law.
It is another edition of NY Flight Jets Talk tonight. Like I said a few seconds ago, we were going to be breaking down an article from none other than Nick Faria, Jets X Factor writer. I am joined by my co-host tonight, Chris Grasso. Chris, how you doing tonight, my man?
I'm doing well, man. Both of us tag teaming up to fill in for Connor, who's taking care of a concert and doing some fun stuff with all of his school friends out somewhere in Long Island. So listen, man, it's gonna be a fun night breaking down chopping up some, talking some Jets with you. God, I can't speak.
You're good, Chris. You're good. I'm very excited for tonight as well. Great show we hosted on Sunday together. Always love doing this with you, man. I want to break down this article currently by Nick.
I am Jack Cotter, and I love the 2020 Jets. All I care about, the 2020 Jets. After that, don't matter. The 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, 2020, crazy. Jets will win 6 games no matter what. The ceiling is 7 games, but Chris says, what the fuck? Jimmy in the chat always talking crap, but it don't.
I think we're getting hijacked, Chris. I think we're getting hijacked by the man himself, Connor. But anyway, so Nick Faria did release a article today on OTAs today, as the Jets OTAs did start today, I believe. Chris, first of all, I want to ask you, man, what are your thoughts on OTAs so far this year? Based off what we've seen so far with Justin Fields.
OTAs, the 3 things I'm looking for that Nick Faria basically highlighted in this article that we're going to share our thoughts on in a moment is discipline. That's the number one thing we're looking for. Limiting turnovers. And building the trenches. So those are 3 key takeaways. And Jack, I'll get your thoughts first here on discipline. Discipline is something that I think is very key for instilling this new New York Jets culture under Aaron Glenn. I mean, discipline is something we lacked with all the other regimes that we had, especially Robert Saleh and Jeff Ulbrich. Yes. And that ultimately led to the demise of this team. And Robert Saleh was buddy with everyone in the locker room. No one was taking accountability. And that is the easiest way to make a football team fall apart and go to shit. So ultimately, discipline, to bring the culture together, making the guys play for each other, is going to be a key to this team's success under Aaron Glenn.
Of course, yeah, but I do have to, say something on that discipline, Chris, right? Because discipline, like you said, was one of our biggest weaknesses over the past few regimes, especially over the last couple of years under Robert Saleh. Because over the last 2 years, the Jets led the NFL in penalties with a total of 261 penalties. That is 18 more total penalties than the team right behind them. And that's a whole lot of penalties if you think about it, 18. It could still be an issue with Aaron Glenn, though, right? Because the Lions did tie for the most defensive pass interference calls, which were 17, and defensive holding, which were 10 holding calls on the Lions alone last season. And the Jets must learn to keep these penalties very low this season. Otherwise, then we'll have another Aaron Glenn-filled penalty-riddled season this year. Under him. That's really the only concern I really have with Aaron Glenn right now is, yes, we obviously have hope in this new regime, but how can you trust a coach that is not well known, or that is well known for not having the best discipline on their defense, right? And especially because if we really want the defense to step up this season, based off of last season, we really need to limit these. We really need to have more discipline and limit the penalties here.
For sure. I agree with you 100%, but except the point you made on Aaron Glenn having a reputation for defensive penalty ridiculed defenses. Excuse me. Last year, Aaron Glenn's defense was so banged up and so hurt that they were having guys who are not usually playing coming in and getting reps. So that could be part of the reason why all these defensive penalties are happening, because you have players who are coming off the bench, and yes, they're going to be more sloppy. So I don't think you can blame that entirely on Aaron Glenn. And one thing I'm looking forward to the most with Aaron Glenn is his ability to just command a locker room and be a leader of men. I think that was the most important quality in a coach coming into this hiring cycle. And Aaron Glenn, his presence throughout walking around rookie minicamp in OTAs, like I really think he could be the guy to bring this team together and bring us to glory down the road if we can really start putting the pieces together and hit on a quarterback. Because Aaron Glenn, although he's a defensive mind, I love his ability to just command. So we're gonna have to see that unfold this season for sure. See if we can limit the penalties, be more disciplined, and just ultimately be a much better coach football team is what we're all looking for. And to see the development of Justin Fields. So ultimately, if you have coaching quarterback in this league, you're gonna be chilling. So let's hope we have the coach quarterback we have time for. But this year will really be telling about Aaron Glenn and see what he can do.
Yeah, I do have one question.
My name is Chris Brasso and I love the Jets more than everyone else. I am a highlight warrior. Aaron Glenn is the best coach they could have hired, but under 4 games won and he must be fired. I love every 2026 QB just based on highlights. I have watched 5 minutes of Nico's highlights and he is a Hall of Fame. Arm strength is all that matters. This isn't the same old Jets. THE 2025 Jets are different. Justin Fields is the franchise guy, or Nico will be drafted in 26. Highlights are all that matter.
Yeah, I think we're still getting hijacked by the man behind the scenes here.
Yes. But anyway, Josh, what were your thoughts on that little rant, that monologue, if you will?
Well, I think first of all, oh, Chris. Anyway, Chris, I wanted to ask you a question. Like, based off when you said that it wasn't entirely Glenn's fault, how can you really appreciate it, Jamie? But I mean, how could you say that it wasn't entirely Glenn's fault when Glenn was the defensive coordinator of that defense? Like, you can't really say that it really wasn't his fault when he was the one commanding the defense. Like, of course, maybe some of it wasn't his fault, but he had the chances to fix them, and did he do it? Not really. So I don't understand where you're coming from when it was saying really it was not all of his fault. I just want to get your opinion on that real quick.
Well, yeah, I obviously some of it can be on him, but when you have guys coming off the bench and relying on them to play meaningful reps, because the Lions defense was so banged up, obviously the most meaningful named Aiden Hutchinson. So, yeah, with him out, a bunch of other guys out, it's going to be hard to run a disciplined defense when your starting core and your main guys aren't there. So while Aaron Glenn isn't getting off scot-free with that, I think there is a case to be made for why the defense was sort of a little out of the ordinary there.
Yeah, I could definitely see where you're coming from there. I just really hope that he's able to fix this issue because, like we said, they've had a terrible track record with penalties over the last couple of years. If they can fix it, then I think our defense will be back to 2022, 2023 Jets defense. And it's talking on the defense here. I'm gonna go off track a little bit here, but Sauce Gardner, like a lot of people are saying that he was very undisciplined last year with the Jets. Obviously tackles were a bit of an issue last year, but overall people were just saying in general as a corner he fell off a lot. I hate when people say this because I know, like, maybe we've said it on the Next Gen show a few times, but Sauce Gardner still statistically had a top 5, top 10 corner season last year. I think it's really absurd that how people could just say that he completely fell off the face of the earth just because he apparently had a bad season last year. Yes, maybe it wasn't up to his standards, but he's still Sauce Gardner. He was still a top 10 corner last year statistically. Chris, I know you speak very highly on Sauce, so I'm going to get your thoughts on that as well.
I agree with you 100%. And I think Sauce, we obviously saw him not get a lot of interceptions in his tenure with us so far. And that's really the only complaint, that and that he's not great at tackling. But I think if we put him in a good scheme, put him in a good position, for example, this year I want to see him traveling with the other team's number 1 wide receiver and really just lock him down, because that's what we know he can do. So ultimately, I'm really looking forward to seeing how Aaron Glenn can use and even further develop Sauce Gardner, with Aaron Glenn being a former corner, and seeing what Steve Wilkes' defense has in store for Sauce. And because really, I just love Sauce Gardner as a player, and I really know, all of us Jeff fans know what he can do when he is thriving and put in the right situation. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how they use him.
Yeah, I like how you made the point of Aaron Glenn. Obviously being the new head coach of the Jets and being a former cornerback. I was definitely just thinking that as well. Obviously Glenn, a former even Jets cornerback. I really hope can help elevate Gardner back to his standards, right? But overall, I still think Gardner had a great season last year. So now I want to get to our second topic of the video, or really there's only one topic, but second part of the article, I should say, was the turnover problem that the New York Jets have to fix this year. Looking at Justin Fields, right? Fields does not really have the best track record in the NFL for turnovers. In his career, he's had 31 interceptions and 12 lost fumbles in his career. Because I really feel like the Jets can use a fix. They can fix this with a change in dynamics, right? Because since there were a lot more interceptions, in my opinion, with Justin Fields, as you saw, like 31 picks, 12 lost fumbles, maybe you go away from that, right? I think that is the smart issue, right? You have to switch to an offense where Justin Fields doesn't have to worry about throwing the ball constantly. Maybe switch it to like a West Coast offense or a tight spread, right? A tight spread I feel like is really ideal because yes, you could still have Garrett Wilson, Malachi Corley, Josh Reynolds involved in the offense here, but you still have your run first style that you really want to include here because Justin Fields was second in rushing quarterbacks in a single season in 2022. 1,143 yards and 8 rushing touchdowns. So I mean, if he's going to put up numbers like that, I really feel like you have to use him to the best of his ability, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you can't really trust Justin Fields to develop or, really play some clean football under an offensive line like he had in Chicago. And then the Steelers with a solid O-line, but I think they were really playing it safe and trying to limit the turnovers with him. But I think the Steelers did it completely wrong. I think they put way too much limitations on him. I feel like they made him play too conservative, and that would kind of crush my confidence if I was playing quarterback in that type of system. And we see on film, players are wide open, and Justin Fields goes and constantly checks it down. I think that's directly related to coaching, and I'm really excited to see how we put him in, how we use him in our scheme specifically, and how we just let him play the quarterback position and use his legs. I'm excited to see that, maybe some 70-yard rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, you just gotta hope. I mean, definitely he's gonna have more rushing touchdowns definitely than passing. I could see that a lot throughout this season.
I hope not. I mean, I think I'm looking for him to be a passer too. I mean, if he's going to develop into the face of the franchise like me and many other Jet fans have been talking up to be, he's going to have to develop as a passer with this solid offensive line.
Of course, he has to develop it. I'm just saying, but like you have to use him, and I think he's going to use what he's best at, right? If the Jets are going to run a runs first offense this year, obviously I think Fields is going to have more rushing touchdowns than passing touchdowns this season, just of the sole fact that he is better at rushing than passing. I mean, like I said, Jets fans really have to realize that Fields isn't here to be a, what do I say, like a field general, right? He's here to be a scrambler. He's not here to He's not here to throw. I mean, obviously he's here to throw, but he's more here to run, right? You got to use him to what he's good at. I know Connor hates when I say this, but you have to, and when you say this too, you have to build around Justin Fields. You have to build this offense around Justin Fields, right? If he's best at running, tight spread, run first offense, ground and pound, perfect. That's going to get you 3 to 4 yards per carry. And if you think about it, 3 to 4 yards per carry isn't bad at all. Because you're not rushing to the end zone, which is what I feel like the Jets did a lot of times last season. They tried to rush to the end zone a lot. They're taking their sweet time, which is something that I really value with this team, right? Because if you get 3 to 4 yards per play, you're getting around, let's say it's 1st and 10, you get 4 yards, that's 2nd and 6. Then you get another 4 yards, that's 3rd and 2. You get another 3 or 4 yards, 1st down. Keep driving down the field. You're already at 1st and goal before you even know it, right? And then you can just go score a touchdown. I really feel like that's the most efficient way to run a run-first offense, especially in the league today, right? You really have to prioritize in smart, efficient play over like quality over quantity, right? Have you ever heard that saying, Chris?
Yes, I have. I mean, I understand what you're saying. I think that it needs to be a run first offense because the way we've developed our offensive line and all the talent in our running back room, but I'm not saying that to neglect Fields as a passer. I think we should really let him throw the ball this year. And if he's good, great. If he's not, then we'll move on. But however, if Justin Fields doesn't work, I want him to not work and I want us to find out by him throwing the football. I don't want us to find out by him. I don't want there to be any question if Justin Fields is the guy or not. I want him to either be 100% the guy or 100% not. But in reality, I think that this season is going to be very fun to watch, especially with Justin Fields, all the electricity he can bring, and everything else that this Jets offense is going to be.
Do you think, Chris, I'm also thinking about this, speaking of the run game a lot, like a run first offense this year. If Breece Hall's really not going to pick it up this season, do you see the Jets giving him a second contract? Because as of right now, I really don't see the Jets giving Breece Hall a second contract due to his play style he's been. Of course, when he gets into space, he's a beast, but I'm just saying his vision looks absolutely terrible. I really think he just needs to fix that a lot. And his speed has downgraded a lot since his ACL tear, which of course is going to ruin any running back's career in one way or another. And unfortunately, that's Breece Hall's speed, right? Of course, he's still fast, but he's definitely not up to par with what a top 10 running back should be, right? So as of right now, I really don't see the Jets giving Breece Hall a second contract. What about you, Chris?
Yeah, I think Breece Hall needs to eclipse 1,200 yards rushing, and I think I would love to see him eclipse 10 touchdowns too. I think he needs to put up a productive season for us to be comfortable in signing him. But ultimately, we can just franchise tag him if he has a mediocre season. But if the struggles persist and he doesn't look like himself, I'm not opposed to trading him at midseason, especially with Braylon Allen, Isaiah Davis, and maybe Donovan Edwards coming in, our undrafted rookie free agent. I mean, but that's only if he's really struggling. I'm confident that he's going to have a productive year, and I'm excited to watch him as well. So that's actually one of the players to watch on this team is Breece Hall. He was so hyped up coming into this season. Obviously, he underperformed to the standards that we all held him to, but that could have been a multitude of different reasons. I know people don't like when I make excuses for Breece Hall. So ultimately, he's just going to have to show us this season, which is what I'm excited to see.
Yeah, another running back on the team that I'm really excited to see is Isaiah Davis, right? Chris, I remember me, you, and Connor were watching film on Davis one night, and I completely fell in love with him. I immediately fell in love with the way he plays. Of course, I've seen Isaiah Davis play before. I was at the Seahawks game. I watched the Dolphins game. He looked so good in those games, but I never really realized, and I never really got in depth of what he could really do until I saw it on film that one night when we were on call, right?
Yeah, but on the Isaiah Davis point, I mean, I kind of agree. I don't know where we're gonna find space for him. I think that people who are hating on Braylon Allen, like, we didn't see enough of anybody. We didn't see enough of Breece Hall, and he was our running back 1. What makes you think we can use our running back 2 correctly? It doesn't make. And so I think I'd put Braylon Allen ahead of Isaiah Davis in my priorities, honestly, especially Breece Hall ahead of him as well. So I don't know if there's going to be much room for Isaiah Davis. He can come in and make some noise for sure, but ultimately I'm really looking at Breece and Braylon, killer bees, baby.
So, I mean, do you really think that Braylon Allen can really step up to what a lot of people thought he was going to be last year? Because yes, I could definitely see your point, Chris. They used him totally wrong. Instead of going, I feel like they did the complete opposite, with what they should have done. They sent Breece up the middle and really Braylon on the outside a lot. I feel like it really should be reversed. Braylon should be the one powering through the middle. Breece should be the one going on the outside. That's really where both of these running backs really find their best success with the Jets, right? And if they're going to be used the right way, they're going to have great seasons, right? But I feel like Isaiah Davis, my opinion with Isaiah Davis, right? He's so elusive that he's able to go anywhere really and make a play. He can find a hole very quickly. He has great vision. He has great, like I said, he has great elusiveness. He can juke very well. He has very fast reaction time, which is what I really love for a running back. And he's very speedy as well. Very fast, very young running back on this team. But, of course, you're right about Braylon Allen. I'm really excited to see what Braylon Allen's able to do this season. But anyway, I want to go to the third and final topic this year of this show, and that is what Nick Ferrier stated to be the third and final stage that the New York Jets must fix are the trenches, right? In my opinion, when he stated the trenches, I know he mentioned the offensive and defensive line and even compared them to the Philadelphia Eagles, but in my opinion, the offensive line, they've already solved their offensive line issue. They got their missing right tackle in Armand Membu. John Simpson's a rising guard. AVT, we already know, is a superstar when he's healthy. Olufashinu, rising star. Joe Tittman, rising star, right? Obviously, the O-line seems to be very complete, but the D-line still seems to be very incomplete, right? Especially at the defensive tackle position. Obviously, at edge, you have Will McDonald and Jermaine Johnson, but, I mean, who really knows if Jermaine Johnson's going to come back to what he was when he was very dominant with the Jets pre-Achilles tear, right? And so we don't know. and we don't really have a solid backup for those two yet, besides maybe Tyler Barron, who I think will be a very solid backup to Will McDonald and Jermaine Johnson. But defensive tackle is really, really where I see an issue here. Quinnen Williams, to me, is the only one I see as a true competitive defensive tackle right now. I mean, I guess you could maybe sign names like or keep names like Leonard Taylor III and Brian Coward on the roster here. But, Chris, I want to get your thoughts on, the trenches here, because in my opinion, I feel like we've already solved the offensive line issue with Armand Membu, but we still have to go after that missing defensive tackle 2 spot here, especially if Q wants to get some breathing room here. We can't just keep Michael Clemens around here.
Yes, 100%. The first thing I would like to mention, this article we all know is written by Nick Faria. Under the trenches category, the first 3 words are the Philadelphia Eagles. My guy Nick Faria compared everything to the Eagles, but that's besides the point. I do agree with we need to build the defensive trenches. We need some depth. Don't know how we're going to get it at this point. I think that Aaron Glenn has some faith in the guys that we already have. I don't know why, but at this point, I'm going to trust Aaron Glenn because he's our coach, and ultimately, I like how he's gone about everything so far. So he has my trust until proven otherwise. So ultimately, we're gonna have to see someone step up, whether that be Leonard Taylor III or anybody else that's in this D tackle room, in this D line room. But listen, we're really banking on the fact that Jermaine's gonna come back 100% and Will McDonald is gonna develop, because if not, it's gonna look pretty shaky on D line. Regarding O line, our O line should be a top 5 unit in the league, which is why our running game should be good. So really,
I would say top 8, maybe top 10. I would say.
Well, the amount of first-round picks we invested, it should be a top 5 unit. And ultimately, why can't it be, honestly? As long as everyone stays healthy, we should be fine in that part. So I'm not worried about the O-line. The D-line is pretty concerning, though.
The only thing about this O-line is just if they stay healthy throughout the entire season, I really think they will, at the end of the season, be, like you said, or at least a top 10 unit in this league and help. Maybe even they'll be a top 5. I mean, that's the best you can ask for is obviously the best offensive line in the league. But that's a lot. That's a lot to ask to say that they're going to be all 5 of them are going to be healthy this entire season, right? I mean, you're right. Why not? I'm just saying, but offensive line is a very physical position, and it's very, especially with a track record with AVT being out with a lot of injuries over the course of his NFL career. I mean, what is it a guarantee that AVT is going to be healthy all 17 games this year? What's a guarantee that Olu is going to be healthy? I mean, we don't really know, right? Of course, right. Like I said, the offensive linemen are very powerful. They're very durable, but they're a very physical position. They tend to get injured a lot. And who's our backup center? Josh Myers. I mean, it's all right. I mean,
I'm fine with Josh Myers as a backup center.
I'm fine. I'm fine with it. I'm just like, he's not really someone that I would completely trust next to Joe Tippmann, right? Because you're looking at this offensive line here. It's a very young and offensive line, which I do have faith in, right? Armand Membu, obviously, arguably the best offensive tackle in this draft. Him or Will Campbell for sure. They're very young. That doesn't mean they can't get injured, right? And I feel like that's really the part for me that a lot of people overlook. This offensive line is very, very, very young, but anything can happen, really. That's just my thoughts.
For sure. I mean, listen, if our O-line is good, then Justin Fields can kind of get into a rhythm as long as he's not – like, if Justin Fields is bad, we'll know. So it all depends on Justin Fields. And even if Justin Fields sucks, we can still put in Tyrod and save the season and maybe salvage 7 wins if Aaron Glenn is a good coach. So after this year, we're going to know 2 things. We're going to know if Aaron Glenn is a good coach, and we're going to know if Justin Fields is if we're going to be able to work with them. So ultimately, a lot of that can rely on the O-line, the offensive scheme, how good Tanner Engstrand is, how if our D line stays healthy, because there's no depth. So if everyone on the D plays good, Steve Wilkes can put together a good defense with Aaron Glenn. So ultimately, there's a lot of ifs, but this is why I'm so excited for this season to come, so we can just get it all out of the way and just start evaluating, baby.
Yeah, the thing about you said about Tyrod Taylor, though, right, is I feel like Taylor was once a very mobile quarterback, but now he's approaching 36 years old. He may even already be 36 years old at this point. He's definitely not as mobile as he was back in, let's say, 2017 or 2016, right? Obviously, I would be totally comfortable with Taylor being our quarterback too. And if let's say we run a tight spread, run first, ground and pound type offense here, obviously Justin Fields is going to thrive in that. I really believe so. And especially if, like we said, if the offensive line stays healthy, it's going to be a unit, right? So I really feel like Fields can, be a monster in that run first offense. But you got a guy like Tyrod Taylor who's getting old, 36 years old as a quarterback. He's gotten beat up a lot. He's very injury prone, as you can say. So, I mean, I'd be a little worried if Tyrod Taylor does have to come in this season and would have to run a a run first offense. It's just a little bit of a concern for me.
It-
You know,
But Jack, I think you failed to recognize Tyrod Taylor is mobile. Although he's old, he is a mobile quarterback, and he is able to run a run first offense. In my opinion, I think he'd have no
no, of course,
problem
this
doing
makes
that, and especially behind a good offensive line. Like I mean, I know he's fragile, but there's a chance he could stay healthy if our O line is gelling like we all hope it is. And he's mobile; he can escape the pocket. I think he's way more mobile than Rodgers.
I mean, of course, he's way more mobile than Rodgers. I'm just saying he's definitely not as mobile as he was 8 or 9 years ago, right? And that really has to be a concern because, I mean, Tyrod Taylor, when we saw him play last year, we really only saw him pass. We never really saw him rushing the ball, right? So you can't really say that he'll be 100% because he definitely will not be. I guarantee he'll get banged up and get an injury at least one time this season if he ever gets into the game. You know, and if they do audible to a couple pass plays that they have here and there, maybe spread out to the West Coast offense and run some quick plays, quick slants, RPOs to Malachi Corley or Arian Smith here, you know, I mean, I guess that could work, but the only thing is, right, you just hope to not see it. That's the issue, right? You really
For
hope
sure.
to just not see that at all this year. And who knows? Maybe Brady Cook can come in and be a solid QB too if he overperforms Tyrod in this quarterback room. If they decide to keep a QB 3, that is right. My hope is that Brady Cook does make the roster. I like Adrian Martinez, but only as a preseason quarterback. I really don't really trust him a lot in the regular season, just because we've obviously seen some flashes of Martinez in the preseason, but we've also seen a lot of flaws with him in the preseason as well. So, I mean, I'm excited to see what Brady Cook can do. And this article was very fun to chop up with you, Chris, tonight. And I just want to thank you so much for joining me here tonight, man.
100% for sure. Before we take some calls, let's get into some comments. Ricky New York checks in. The Lions under Glenn last year had so many injuries. He had guys off the street playing. You have to put it into context. That is not his norm. That is response to Jack mentioning all the defensive issues with discipline the Lions had last year. And I 100% agree with Ricky here.
If you're going to have your starters here, though, you have to this game is not just, starters just get the treatment here, backups don't. So what? I want to put a so what on that, Ricky, right? So what if they're injured? They still have to have discipline, right? That's like saying Sauce Gardner again.
They're not good. They're like backups of backups here. Like we're talking about
If you're
guys.
a player in the NFL, Chris, you are good. If you're on a practice squad, you are a good football player. At this level, you should be able to be coached on discipline. You should be able to be coached on discipline. That's just my opinion. At this level, like even in the high school or college football level, you have to be coached on discipline. It can't take you until you're 23, 25 years old to learn discipline, right? I feel like that's an early stage in football, in any sport for that matter, to learn discipline. Obviously, there's some stuff in the NFL that is way harder to do in college and high school football by far. But if you make it to that stage, you should be able to be coachable, right? There's no excuse for not being disciplined on a great defense. So what? So you're saying, okay, so I'm a backup of a backup. I have a free ride this year. So what? If I'm not disciplined, I'm just going to blame it on because I'm a third string. You can't do that. You're an NFL player. You need to be disciplined, and the coach needs to be able to teach you discipline and have you be disciplined for this defense. There's no excuse, really, in my opinion.
Yeah, but at that point, you're playing guys who don't even barely are familiar with the scheme, barely are familiar with getting playing time. Like, I don't think Aaron Glenn's coaching can save a third string player, and prevent any mistakes from happening. Like, they're a third string. Like Ricky said, there's guys playing off the street.
But they're NFL players. They're NFL players.
You're gonna expect more mistakes, and you're gonna expect it to be sloppy. So I agree, you 100%. You cannot blame Aaron Glenn for that.
You can't. I can see where you're coming from, Chris. Obviously, they have little experience playing on the field, but you've already seen these types of levels in practice. This is why they have practice, right? If there was no practice, right, if there was no practice, then it'd be a different story, right? But these guys practice. These guys have made it through college football, guaranteed, maybe at least starting at least once, a few times in college football, right? And especially, like I've said, if you make it to the NFL, you gotta be able to be coachable. There's no excuse to not be coachable.
Jack, what's your response to this Jimmy comment here?
I'm a linebacker. I barely get the opportunity to hold. I mainly blitz that B gap, if you know what I mean.
Let's go. All right, let's head over to the phone lines. Nathan is up. What's up, Nathan?
Hello. I wanted to talk about the Justin Fields stuff that you guys were mentioning.
Mhm.
So I kind of agree with both you. I think that we need to build to his strengths, which are obviously running the ball, but we also need to see what kind of quarterback he is as a passer. So I think that there's a way to build a running scheme around him, and you can still evaluate him as a passer in smaller opportunities. We just need him to be efficient, make the right play, and not cause too many turnovers because we know he's not going to be a top 5, top 10 passer in the league. It's about if he can be a competent passer, excuse me, to go along with his running ability.
What tells you he can't be a top 10 passer in the league? I know he hasn't been good going through his progressions. He hasn't exactly been the most accurate quarterback, but how can
His
you
play
trust a
style,
quarterback?
Chris.
What? Yeah, but
But
how can
He's
you
terrible.
trust
He's
a
terrible at the
quarterback
deep
to do
ball.
all that stuff
He's terrible
behind
at the
a
deep ball.
horrible offensive line? You have a great offensive line. Only complaint is the weapons, which hopefully we're not done and we go out and sign or trade.
He had a decent O-line in Pittsburgh, and he couldn't maintain the pass, right?
Yeah,
They used him in a
because they were
pass, but the
holding him
offense didn't
back.
really
The
work
Steelers
out,
were
right?
holding him back.
I think the part with Justin Fields being a passer, right? Obviously, Nathan, great question, by the way. I appreciate your call. But obviously, you still have to have Justin Fields throw the ball. You have to get him better. You have to get him better. You always have to get someone better at passing. You can never, even the best passes in the league have to get better somehow, right? Aaron Rodgers gets better year by year. Josh Allen gets better year by year at passing. These guys are some of the top of the food chain at passing the ball. But a guy like Justin Fields, yes, he needs to work on his throws. But if you have someone with a gift of running, I don't see why you can't just build around that, right? And obviously, if you have a run first offense, of course you got to pass here and there, but I don't see him. I don't want to over exaggerate his arm talent, right? Because obviously we've seen that he's not great at the deep ball. You use what he does right. Maybe he's slipping a little RPOs, little bubbles, little quick slants here and there, speed outs. That's just my opinion on why I think, or how, excuse me, I think the Jets should use Justin Fields this year. Like I said, obviously there's always room for improvement.
I like
Always
Justin
room
Fields'
for
arm.
Justin Fields
I
to-
think if our defense is humming, we can get a nice deep ball game flowing. So ultimately, we're gonna have to see. That's really the main takeaway, Nathan.
For sure.
And then just one more thing. I don't understand all the Michael Clemens hate. I mean, I know he hasn't been a great player for us, but our fans want to keep Malachi Corley around. They want to keep Tony Adams around. Both players who struggled majorly under the past regime, but we want to give them another chance. So why is it not the same with Michael Clemens? I'm not saying that he can be a reliable guy for us. Just people are like, oh, we should cut him before we even get into training camp. Why would we cut him but then give Tony Adams a contract extension? They're both
The
guys
thing
who have
about
not proven a lot.
Yeah, the thing about Michael Clemens, right, is because, if you look at the percentages of snaps played last year, I get Q was hurt, but Michael Clemens almost played around 55-60% of the snaps every game last season on defense, right? And that's more than half. So we've seen quite a bit of Michael Clemens here. In my personal opinion about Clemens, he's terrible at reading, right? He's terrible at reading. He's terrible at staying home, right? Take a look. I'll name a perfect example. Go back to that play against Buffalo home on Monday night where he could have, stopped Josh Allen there on 3rd and 2, I believe it was. Instead, he didn't stay home. He bit into the bait, right? He bit into that read option. Obviously from watching film that entire week, you should know as an NFL player that Josh Allen 3rd and 2 is just going to seal it, right? But no, he doesn't stay home. He instead cuts back, he falls for the bait. And that's something you can't have in this league, right? Obviously, I don't think JJ or Will McDonald would have done that. So that's why, obviously, in my opinion, you have to cut Michael Clemens. And the thing about Malachi Corley, right, is because we haven't seen enough. He hasn't found his place in the offense yet, right? And plus, there's really no trade value for Corley, I believe, at this point, because we haven't seen enough out of him. So the thing about Corley, right, I said this, I think, a few seconds ago. He wasn't used properly in the offense, which is why I think if you set him on a couple RPOs, bubbles, like I said with Justin Fields' passing, maybe he hook Fields up with Corley on a couple RPOs, jet sweeps, bubble screens. I think that's really where Corley shines in the NFL, these shallow routes, right? Obviously, we've seen, he's struggled a lot with discipline and attitude, right? With, of course, the famous dropping the ball in the end zone play against Houston, but that's the difference between Corley and Clemens, right? We've seen a lot out of Clemens and the mistakes he's done. We just haven't seen enough out of Corley and how he can fit into this offense. I picture Malachi Corley really as like Jameson Williams, right? Jameson Williams didn't really find a place in the Lions offense until just a couple years ago, or at least I think, just a couple years ago even. And even like not even at the beginning of 2023, I would say towards the middle or the end of 2023 is really where he found his place in that Lions offense. And I just hope that that's the same with
I am Jack Cotter, and I love the 2020 Jets. All I care about. Oh.
Bro, this kid's hijacking our stream, bro.
Yeah.
But Nathan, we appreciate the call, man. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Appreciate the call, man.
All right, let's
Great
get back.
call by Nathan.
Yup. All right, Jack. It's been fun, bro. You have any final thoughts for us here?
7-10, 8-9 season incoming, baby. Let's beat the New England Patriots. Let's go 2-0 against the New England this year, although I don't see it happening. Let's do it. Let's do it, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, you change your schedule prediction every week. 1 week it's 6, 1 week it's 7, 1 week it's 8. I think
It's been 8 the past few days ever since the schedule came out.
I think it's solid to expect a 10-7, or not 10-7. I think it's not terrible to expect a 9-8 season. I think it's definitely possible. Don't get me wrong. I could see them going 8-9, 7-10. I think that's pretty realistic. 8-9, 7-10 is realistic approach. But I think 9-8 is extremely doable, and maybe even 10 is doable if we can just get everything humming the right way. But that's if everything goes best. I think our ceiling is 11-6. Our floor is I think our floor is 4-13. I'm not even gonna get into what your floor and ceiling is. I don't want, we're already trying to wrap up the show here. You're not gonna go on for 15 minutes debating with you and trying to give you a dictionary definition of what a ceiling is. But ultimately, I'm just excited to watch the Jets, man. So it's been fun, man.
Yeah, I appreciate this doing this with you, man. Of course, I love doing the Sunday show with you. Love our nightly calls with Connor and Josh. But appreciated doing this with you tonight. And let's get a Jets chant going, Chris. Let's get a Jets chant to end the stream here.
Whoa,
J-E-T-S. Jets.
Jets.
Thank you, everybody, for watching, and we will see you all tomorrow. Or you'll see Connor tomorrow for NY Flight Jets Talk, and you'll see me and Chris on Sunday for Next Gen Jets. Peace out, everybody.